Hello, everyone. Welcome. Glad that you're making some time to take care of some of your financial wellness on this cold Tuesday. Today, we're going to be talking about scams and fraud prevention during the holidays, which is definitely a hot topic right now. My name is Jen Fries. I'm the Community Engagement Manager at the Harvard Federal Credit Union, and I'll introduce Danielle in a moment. In the background, we do have Ty Coppelson from my team, and he's going to be checking in on our Q&A for us and putting little information links as need be into the chat. Together, the community engagement team is here for you if you need a workshop, whether that be in person at your office on any financial wellness topic. We are all certified credit union financial counselors here. So that's something that we bring as we do our financial wellness education. So just to let everyone know what to expect, we are in webinar mode, and that means that you're not able to put something into the chat. However, we do want you to participate actively in this webinar. You can use the Q&A feature to submit questions. Later, we'll address questions that were sent in ahead of time. So if you did that, we will try and get to them. But you can also go into the Q&A feature. If it's not showing up on your Zoom toolbar where like the mute and everything is, go into the three dots on the side, into more, and then you'll see Q&A as an option. And you can go into Q&A, throw a question in there. You can do that. You can practice now if you want, throw in a question, let us know where you're joining us from. We love to hear that. So webinar mode, for those who don't know, it means that we cannot see you, the participants, we cannot hear you. So feel free to eat your lunch, do whatever you need to do in the background, and don't worry about that interrupting anything. We're really happy that you're here, and I know sometimes people have to do this over their lunch hour. This presentation is being recorded. Just from having registered, you will receive the recording and you'll get the slides. It's going to be posted on our YouTube, and so you'll get the link for that emailed to you later. And we are going to send also in that same email a request for you to submit a survey. We do read all of the feedback that we get from the surveys. We love to get your honest feedback, and we do literally change things based on what we get in those. So please feel free to, be frank with us, think what could be better, and what did you like, what didn't you? So thank you for that. So without further ado, I do want to introduce Chris Skevofilax. He's a licensed mental health counselor and a senior EAP consultant at Mass General Brigham in the Employee Assistance Program. And Chris, I think you have a little bit to tell us just about EAP and what benefits people have at Mass General Brigham.
Yep, that's right. Thank you, Jen, and thank you everyone for being here. I was happy to partner with Harvard Credit Union on presentations like this, and as you said, Jen, definitely a hot topic, and seems like it's just ever evolving. So we're happy to have this presentation and be able to make it available with recording as well for future reference. But just want to spend a quick minute before we get into the presentation to make sure you know about your employee assistance program here at Mass General Brigham. The main things to know are that we're totally free, voluntary, and confidential, very importantly, resource for all Mass General Brigham employees, the entire system, as well as household family members. Most of the work that we do is on the shorter term side, but we also, it could be some shorter term counseling, but it's also resource referrals and support as well. So on the screen you can see and not an exhaustive list, but just some of the main reasons that people reach out to us. So of course, could be on the mental health, relationship, well-being side, could be job stress, navigating work issues, but could just be resource needs as well. And financial, for example, and legal, so relevant to this presentation potentially, are among the top reasons people reach out to us as well. So it really spans like almost anything work-life health related. Really importantly too, we have 24/7 on-call availability. So if anything is ever pressing, just know that you can always reach somebody from our team. And that's really any time. So you don't need to wait a few business days for an appointment if anything is really pressing. Like we're always here. We're available through video, through phone, and in person too. So at any of the main Mass General Brigham like hospital locations, we do have offices as well where you can be seen. So just wanted to make sure you know a bit about who we are and what we do. We have our website at the bottom, eap.partners.org, and you can request an appointment online. And you can also see our upcoming webinars and our recorded ones also, and have a ton of different resources that kind of mirrors like what you see on the screen. And thank you, Ty, for putting that in the chat. Appreciate that. And I'll be on as well. If there's any questions about our program, I'm happy to answer. But otherwise, I will turn it back over to Jen and Danielle.
Thank you so much, Chris. And I love your slogan about "Don't worry alone." I think that that's a great takeaway for so many things, that, there are people to help. And we're going to talk about help that you can get related to scams and fraud. So we're going to be covering today fraud and scam prevention. So first of all, awareness, particularly around some holiday scams, that you can't defend yourself if you don't know what is going on, especially in today's digital age, when these fraud schemes are more prevalent than ever. So we're going to help you figure out what are some of the red flags about the signs of scams and how to prevent them. So I'm delighted today to introduce Daniela Schifatelli, sorry. Daniela joined Harvard FCU this spring as our fraud and compliance manager. So I know some of you on this webinar are members of the credit union. We do welcome anyone from Mass General Brigham to join the credit union if you like, but this webinar is going to be relevant whether you're a member of Harvard Federal Credit Union or not. Daniela has a background in fraud prevention and risk analysis. She has worked at the Federal Reserve as well as in consumer and business banking. And when she's not catching fraudsters, she loves to watch a good true crime documentary on financial crime, which I find too stressful, or walking her golden doodle. So we're really excited to have Daniela go over the nuts and bolts of these topics, because there's a lot here, and you're an expert. So I think the first thing that we're going to dive into is what is fraud, and why does it matter? And so correct me if I'm wrong, Daniela. I understand that fraud is when someone tries to trick you out of personal information or money, whereas a scam is more if somebody does something and you're participating in it, maybe unwittingly. So first, we're going to cover fraud. Is that correct?
Correct. And a few of the examples we're going to go over, just as from like a high level talks to like what the differences are. So some of the things that we'll touch base on is, for example, like fraud can happen at any time and you may not even be aware of it's happening. So
Yeah.
your information is unfortunately potentially out there on the dark web or things like that. So you don't know necessarily if, somebody is taking your compromised credit card information, for example, and then making a fraud payment with that.
Yeah.
Whereas in a scam, you're more often than not contacted and asked to provide information or send a payment or something like that. So you're involved in it. So that's really the difference in fraud as a general topic versus different subtypes of fraud.
Okay. Yeah, I know I experienced some fraud during the pandemic, I guess early days, where a lot of people were filing for unemployment with other people's information. And so I didn't know about it until I got something from the unemployment office in the state of Massachusetts. And I was like, hey, I did not apply for unemployment. And so at that point, I was able to stop it. But yeah, you're right. I did not know that that was even happening.
And unfortunately, in those scenarios, with what we saw come out of the pandemic and this rise of almost like a digital age, is a lot of more information is out there. So that's one of the reasons why topics and conversations like this are so important. It's like how to prevent it. And then also one thing we're going to probably say multiple times throughout this webinar is be politely paranoid. We want to act as though our information's already out there, and then set up, our actions and next steps forward in a way that keeps our accounts and our loved ones safe.
Yeah,
So
I love that. Politely paranoid. Okay.
I did not come up with it, but
I'm going to try and take that forward with me in the future for sure. Let's get into some, up on the screen, we have some examples of fraud, like when your credit card is involved in a data breach and someone uses it to buy Bitcoin, or any other kind of time when your identity information is stolen and, someone maybe opens an account, like in my case, opening that unemployment. Um, and I think that you probably have lots of other examples of what fraud is, but is there anything else we need to clarify here?
I don't think so, but just one thing I would continually reiterate throughout the course of the webinar is, be cautious and vet. Like as you navigate, whether it's somebody asking you to borrow your phone or, scanning a QR code while you're out and about, just really be cautious of what's out there because I've worked in, my background is in fraud 15 years, and I've never seen such a rampant uptick in the types of fraud and, the scenarios that are coming out. So we have almost like this perfect storm of old fraud being new and all sorts of new technologies that we have to account for. So really just being aware is the first step. So thank you for being part of the webinar today, because awareness is one of the foundations of any good fraud prevention.
Yeah, I think that everyone who's here or watching it even on YouTube later, like I think that this is like your great first step to make sure that you're not the person
I built a
who is
couple
next.
multi-layered approaches to fraud prevention, and fraud education awareness is where we start with the foundations.
Yes.
So,
okay. So I know that one of the things that you've explained to me, and maybe you can talk a little bit about it with the audience, is fraud is different than billing dispute. Can you tell us what the difference is?
Absolutely. So the idea of what makes fraud different than a billing dispute is the idea of an unauthorized payment. So a fraud transaction is somebody using your information without your knowledge, your consent, and an awareness about it. Whereas a billing dispute differs really regarding intention and authorization. So an example of a billing dispute might be you signed up for a free trial, but you forgot to cancel the subscription. You didn't necessarily.
That's never happened to me. Okay, yes. Yes, it has.
Or something like where you have, we've seen this a couple times where you might have an authorized signer on an account or somebody's joint, and in doing so, you've given them permission to use the account to their ability. So you can't then necessarily say, well, I didn't like how you used it. So example I would say is if you're sharing an account with like roommates and they overtip on like DoorDash or something like that, that's not fraud. That's a roommate disagreement. So we're trying to really
so it's good to have those conversations. However, you can't call that fraud. So for me, the way this has shown up in my life is that we had got my kid a Patreon subscription. They're really into linguistics, and there was this Patreon site called Lingthusiasm, where they do like a weekly podcast on linguistics, and I didn't know why I was being billed because I'd forgotten. So it's like, what is this? I thought I'd canceled all my Patreon stuff, and this one $5 billing just kept coming up, and they were having trouble finding it because it turned out I had to ask under my kid's email.
Gotcha.
So I'm up there like, this is fraud, and they're like, no, I don't. You gave us.
We have an authorization for it.
So I think that those are all really great points about like once you give someone permission, it's more about a conversation. And it's not that I couldn't cancel that. I did, but it wasn't fraud. I didn't necessarily get the money back from when I hadn't canceled it. Right. Okay. So we started talking a little bit about this, the free trial idea. That's very common, and it is a very annoying fact of life, is that if you sign up for these free trials, you really need to put it on your calendar the date you plan to cancel it.
Set the
I
reminder.
know for me, I will forget it. So that's not fraud. It is annoying. It can be expensive. So
Let this be the reminder for everybody who signed up for a free trial for like Black Friday promos or deals. Set the reminder now.
Yes.
So that you're not stuck with a bill you're unaware of.
Yes.
Or no surprises.
Yeah. And I know I personally try and I have a little spreadsheet with my budget and my net worth stuff. And I do have a worksheet on there that's like, these are the automated charges that I have.
And that's so
Just
smart.
like, and I try and put everything on there so that I remember if there's something I want to cancel. So we talked about if someone's authorized to use an account, my kid is an authorized user now on my credit card. So again, if there's something that comes up on the credit card that I don't know what it is, my first step, I do have to ask my kid who's in college. So they're not right there with me and like, hey, did you buy something at this, like if it's an unfamiliar vendor or something, before I say, oh, it's fraud. So let's see.
Kids making purchases.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the classic one. It used to be the classic one, I feel like, was pay-per-view things where kids were like, yeah, I want to pay-per-view this,
I remember renting Titanic back in the day and my mom getting the bill.
And being mad.
Precisely.
Yeah.
I think today it's like Roblox, but I think in today's environment, unfortunately, there's not like a limit. Like I would only rent like so many 99-cent movies, where Roblox is how many, there's an unlimited number of skins or Fortnite or whatnot. So we've had some high dollar.
Sometimes in Minecraft, you just really need a whole new outfit that you pay extra for.
Or buy a whole new, everyone in the village has a whole new outfit. Some of the charges we've
So we definitely recommend that those are not fraud, but we do recommend that you make sure you're not saving payment information somewhere that where your kids have access, unless you want them to have it. Like my kid who has a credit card is very responsible, is an adult now. But, when they were younger, no, I didn't have the information saved on their iPad, for instance, because anything can happen and they're playing some, random game that has in-app purchases, and then that's how you end up in those problems.
Exactly. And one thing I do want to call out is one of the strategies we're going to speak to in a couple slides from now is just around how transaction monitoring can help identify the start of fraudulent activity, but also the importance of it to prevent losses. So things like monitoring accounts. So you see that first, I don't know, 99-cent Roblox charge, you can have that conversation then before it turns into a $500
right, and even remove your information if need be. So before we go on, I do think we wanted to pause for a moment and just talk about the potential impacts of fraud, because it can be quite devastating, and it's not just the money. I mean, the money is very important, but you had mentioned here, and we put in the slide for people to think about, is reputational impacts,
credit, job loss. I had a situation, unfortunately, where we were hiring someone at a former employer and we had to do credit checks. They weren't even aware their information had been used in identity theft, and we couldn't make the offer because how do you parse that and clean it up and things like that? So it can,
that would need to be done ahead of time.
Well in advance. So I hate moving through life with any surprises. So things like, monitoring your credit to make sure aware accounts that are opened are actually, belonging to you. But outside of credit loss, job loss, also the time that you spend trying to recover your information, hours and hours. And it's just a really unfortunate situation. Like you're the victim of a circumstance to then have to go through things like, proving identity or even just cleaning up the information.
Unfortunately, when we go out and do financial wellness talks with young people, it's not that uncommon that we hear from a young person that someone in their family, an older family member, has taken advantage of knowing their social security number and their date of birth and opened credit in their name, and then not necessarily been responsible with that. They shouldn't be doing it at all, but certainly if they're doing that, at least pay it. But no, turns out the same people who will steal your social security number are not responsible with your credit. So unfortunately, those are the kind of things where getting that cleaned up could make the difference, right? Between, I had to have a credit check to work here. Anyone who works at a bank or a credit union or anywhere financial is likely to have a credit check. So
It's
that,
definitely something to pay attention to and stay on top of,
mhm.
so that doesn't continue to have negative impacts as you move
Yeah.
past the event.
Yeah,
So.
for sure. Okay. All right, so we talked about the fraud, which can be something where you don't even know it's happening. I mean, we hope that you're going to be monitoring and get some tips here about how to keep on top of it and know it's happening. But then scams are a little bit different because it requires my participation to some extent. It doesn't mean that I understand what's happening, but something where I'm taking a quiz on a site and I'm giving them information like my first pet, my mom's maiden name, or any of that kind of stuff. I mean, it's amazing how common those
Social engineering,
yeah.
really.
Yeah, is that what it's called? Social
Yeah, so
engineering.
they try to find out information about either yourself or commonly used like password
Yes.
information.
Yes. So just being aware that putting that information in places can open you up, right?
Definitely, you always want to, before you ever click on a link and we'll talk about this throughout the webinar today, is you just want to really make sure that you vet anything that you're clicking on, entering information, or even sending payment for. Like always verify to the best of your ability.
And I think one thing that we did want to highlight here as we move on into scams more is fraud. You sometimes are able to recover the funds because you didn't participate in it. And, my credit card was taken once and, they bought a whole bunch of silk ties and then some stuff at the Apple store. And my credit card did make me whole. They took those off in the end. If I had given my card information, if I had done something where I was giving out my password or authorizing something, I'm less likely to get the money back. Is that correct?
Unfortunately, when you are typically involved with scams, say, we'll talk in a second about like a romance scam, and I've seen this play out, unfortunately, where somebody gave their online banking credentials to somebody they met online and thought they were in this great long relationship with. And the whole point was they gave them the credentials with the expectation that they were going to move in together and rent a place together. So once that happened, the funds were wiped. And
oh my gosh.
We weren't able to restore the funds based upon regulation, which says like if you provide the credentials, it's really when it comes to liability, it's so much harder to pull back funds.
Yeah. Okay.
So, without getting too complicated with the regulations and things like that.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about how to spot these and how to make sure that you're,
And as your credit union, we will do everything that we can to pull back funds, but it's much harder in scam scenarios because of the liability.
Yeah. Okay.
Without making it overly complicated.
Right. Yeah. So up here we have listed some of the kinds of scams that are out there, just some big buckets like romance scams,
Some of the more common
imposter, employment scams. I get the texts all the time that are like, hey, we have a fully remote job, just random texts that
LinkedIn is, super, you have to, again, trust but verify, vet sources, especially in today's age with the employment scams.
And I think the hard thing, I mean, for me, it's very obvious that that is a scam because I'm not looking for work. If I were looking for work and then someone contacts me and I'm like, oh, well, it must be because I have my open to work thing and maybe they're real. So I think it's a little easier to, all of these prey on emotion, correct? And so, one emotion, like if you have fear about, like if I'm worried about paying my bills for my family and then, I want to believe
that you have this golden opportunity lined up. And I think that's really what scammers do is they prey upon any type of emotion. So we have a couple like listed out. So like romance scams, you're looking for love, you have that hope, you have that, and they just so maliciously kind of like lean into that. Same
It
thing
makes
if
me
you're
so
like
mad.
same.
Yeah.
But even if like when you're looking for work, like you're taking advantage of somebody who's vulnerable who might be in a tough financial situation.
Yep.
And the part that makes that even like worse to me is like the opportunity cost. What happens if I'm spending all this time thinking I have this great employment job lined up and I'm giving up potentially
Hmm.
a solid experience. So
Yeah.
it's just things to think about before you really involve yourself, because you're opening yourself up not just like emotionally, but also financially and the information, and it can take years to recover from certain account or just information compromises.
Right. Okay.
So
Yeah. So, like, for instance, in that employment scam, I've heard of a couple different things that people do. One of them is like, oh, we're sending you money to buy a laptop. Oh no, we overpaid you in this check. We sent you 10,000. We meant to send you 1,000. Can you refund the other nine? I refund. What happens?
so
And what's
once
the
you
problem? Yeah.
refund, the payment then comes back and
Mhm.
you're stuck holding the bag
So
basically.
meaning that it was a bad check that they wrote, and so basically I've given them $9,000, and then they're just going to disappear.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So we've seen this time and time again where um, somebody will be contacted as part of a great employment scam. They'll be provided some kind of check to either buy office equipment, take a class, buy software, whatever the situation is. And then, unfortunately, after that, they've gone ahead and allocated the funds, followed the instructions. That payment's going to come back,
Mhm.
and you're going to be out the money to
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
so it's one thing to be really just cognizant of, is to vet the source, verify it, and if something doesn't make sense, just stop engagement. Because one of the things is like your employer as a new hire isn't going to make you buy specific software using a check they sent you. They're just going to send you the software.
Mhm.
So really just I think the overall theme of this webinar, things to think about is slow down, and really think through what is being asked of you, because we're going to cover this in a few slides from now, but like scammers really apply pressure. They
Yeah.
really want you to act quickly. So if nothing else, you go through life, be politely paranoid, and it's okay to
Mhm.
say no.
And it's okay to
So
like slow everything down. I need to talk to somebody about this. So the other employment scam I've heard of is where they literally say you need to fill out a direct deposit form. And that's when you're giving them your banking information, because you're like, oh, okay, well, this is normal, an employer, but how much do you really know about this person who's saying that they're going to be your employer? Are they in fact connected to the company they claim to be at? All of those things, I think, are going to be potential red flags, but that's a worst case scenario where I've provided my information to somebody, and maybe my social security number, maybe my bank information, and they could just, like you said, wipe my account out, correct?
exactly, or even take some of your identity information and either commit further fraud. So
Mm,
opening accounts with that information,
hmm.
or conducting unauthorized transactions that you did not
Yeah.
authorize. So there's a whole host of things you really want to be aware of, particularly if you're providing information that's sensitive, or conducting transactions.
Hmm.
So
And then I think the normal thing that comes to mind is, well, why don't we just go out and arrest these people? And I think the hard thing is, this is it's a global scandemic, right? This is the word that you introduced me to.
yeah,
Um, and so these people are not necessarily, first of all, here in the United States, and it might be very difficult to trace, right?
it's
Correct?
almost impossible. Like
Yeah.
you have really massive groups of, we'll just call it what it is, organized crime. It's a
Yeah.
trillion-dollar global problem. And it really, like the so what of it, like the why we're all here having this conversation today is that it affects so many of us. Like
Hmm.
I want to say it was close to 73% of all adults have um, been contacted as part of a scam online.
Yeah.
So it's really affecting everyone, and just the mass scale that you see, like data centers overseas, their sole job is to defund
Hmm.
people, whether
Yeah.
it's, you know, elder scams or romance scams or investment scams, but it's we've never seen anything like it to this scale.
Yes.
So
Yeah. So I think that, if you have been caught up in some way, you're not alone. And, we're going to give you some tips about like preventing any future or dealing with it if you are caught up in it. But first, we do want to talk about some holiday scams because 'tis the season and they're definitely coming in hot and heavy with a lot of these holiday scams. So I think you had a top 5 here on the slide.
Like, one thing we want to talk about just regarding scams is they tend to be very seasonal, and types of scams will emerge based upon when it is in the year. So
Yep.
one of the ones we'll talk about is like charity donation scams spike during the holiday season.
Sure.
Impersonation scams we'll see probably pick up in January when people are start to file their IRS.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, it's just something to be cognizant of depending on what time of year it is, what's going on in the world, situations.
Yep.
And even unfortunately, sometimes like with the disaster relief, you'll start to see certain programs be impersonated or taken advantage of. So really be aware of what's out there in terms of scams. So we'll cover what I pulled together as far as prevalent scams that we see time and time again, but specific ones to 2025. We'll be going over fake online storefronts and marketplaces is one of the big ones that we wanted to cover.
Okay.
Gift card scams, phishing and spoofing attempts, again, charity and donation scams, as well as delivery scams.
Okay, so let's dive into those. The fake online storefront. I actually saw a really interesting reel on Instagram where a person purchased a product from all these different sellers who all claim to have the same viral dress. And there was the actual store but then the other ones were just stealing their video, their photos. So it looked very real in the ad, but it was not the actual retailer that was, and so I guess these are very prevalent. I don't actually buy that much on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, but I think that, or Facebook, but I think, to the extent that people do, I think that these things are blossoming right now.
And definitely to be mindful of, because there's not just, the reels of the imitation or counterfeit products.
Some of them were counterfeit that she got, and some just didn't send anything, but they took her money.
Yeah, or you to get a box. That happened to one of our employees here who ordered something on Black Friday and got sent an empty box. So working through reclaiming on that. But even further than that, it's like sometimes you'll see like these Facebook marketplaces scams where people pay in cash and then they go to pick up the item and it's not there, or they're asked to make holds. So we just really wanted to be mindful of, when it comes to buying things online or even on like a marketplace, to avoid paying via what we would consider unrecoverable methods. So avoid paying in cash if you can, and avoid paying in gift cards, because we want to kind of create a way to pull that back if we ever.
Because a gift card is like cash, basically.
Yeah,
that's why the scammers are always like, "Oh, can you buy me gift cards?"
Precisely. One thing we're going to say time and time again, especially when it comes to holiday shopping, spending, things like that, gift cards are for presents. They are not for payments. Gift cards are for presents, not for payments.
All right,
so if anybody ever asks you to make a payment via gift card, I want you to just disengage with them, because that is one of the key indicators as far as red flags to think of. So things that are considered to be unrecoverable method payments are things like cash and gift cards. Ones that are not necessarily unrecoverable, it's super hard to recover. If you're asked to pay in Bitcoin or make a wire payment, all really signs of red flags and scams. And another tip or trick we kind of have just in regards to like vetting and validating is to, if you're going to make a purchase online, make sure that it has HTTPS. The S stands for secure, and will help validate that it's, actually FedEx.com, not FedEx.x.com kind of thing.
And when you go onto secure links, I know some of them also have the little lock. What does that mean? Like it can look like it's unlocked, or it can look like it's locked. Is that?
So I believe the lock is just for authentication. So that kind of is another indicator that
you're on the right side. But you want the one with the HTTPS, not just HTTP. Okay. Just for secure. Okay. Um, so we already touched on gift cards, but this goes into a little bit more detail where like someone might come on to Facebook and say, "Hey, I have a gift card that's for sale and I'll sell it for a deal," right? Like it's often like playing on your emotions also about like, "Ooh, a really good deal." So it's a $50 gift card. They're going to sell it to me for 40 for some
Unknown
reason.
reason. And that's one thing you want to be mindful of, because we want to call
Uh-huh.
out that a lot of these times, I think there's a reseller called Plastic Jungle where you can kind of like swap gift cards or
Oh,
things like that, but you also can get burned because you don't know the validity of what's on the
yes.
balance by the time it gets to you.
Yeah.
Another thing we really want to be mindful of is even purchasing gift cards in person, um, to not grab the stock that's towards the front, because that's typically easily tampered with.
Uh-huh.
So the thieves have gone around to different stores and either peeled off stickers
Yeah.
or um, basically grabbed the information on those ahead
Uh-huh.
of time. So once it gets activated, the funds get depleted.
Uh,
So just things to be like to be mindful of is, you know, when you're buying the gift card, are you really buying it from a valid source? And then
mhm.
even if you're going to like Target to buy a Target gift card, are you grabbing the back stock where it's not necessarily
Uh, and I
easily,
noticed some of them too are coming now like sealed,
yeah,
fully sealed, and I guess that's probably the reason is so that people aren't
taking
stealing
the stickers?
off
And
the rack. Interesting. Okay.
again, so many things you have to be top of mind.
Yes, yes. All right. So we also want to touch on phishing, and I know we have some examples to show you about that, but so again, this is like the thing where it's like your participation. Your participation in earlier we were talking about the gift cards for scams. Your participation in phishing is like if they send you an email and then you're answering and giving information, correct?
Precisely. And one thing that I want to talk about as it relates to phishing is usually like a mass um some kind of mass text or mass email. It's not individualized. They're
I
just
see.
trying to see what information they're able to glean.
And
Um,
you're hoping that a few people
yeah.
answer that
So it's
they'll, yeah.
really usually just the first round of trying to figure out, do they have an account here?
Uh,
Do they, X, Y, and Z
yeah.
about them? And then
Right.
once,
Because if you get the text and it's like, oh, from Bank of America, but I know I don't have a Bank of America card, I'm like, oh, but if I do, maybe I think, oh, maybe this is real, right? It's real.
now we have a number that's associated with
Yeah.
the Bank of America account.
Yeah.
Now we can send out a text from Bank of America, which then leads us to spoofing, which is more individualized. So
Uh,
usually the first attempt will be a phishing attempt that is just trying to
mhm.
gain information
Yeah.
about someone, whether it's usually via an email, and they'll usually follow that up with more specifically a spoofing attempt.
Okay, so let's show the email example we have here for phishing first. So this is a real email that somebody got, alleging to be from Gmail. Again, it's playing on those emotions because someone is saying that they've received 42 complaints about your email, and you're like, oh no.
It's a call to action. I have to do something to secure my
Yeah,
account. Like,
yeah.
what's going to happen?
So what are some of the hints here that people can look for?
So first and foremost, whenever you receive a correspondence that's unsolicited, you absolutely want to take a pause and look further into it, especially if there's like a call to action like in this.
Mhm.
So taking like an example of um, this particular email, first right away, the from is highly suspicious regarding the
Mm,
from email. So
yep,
one thing that I would always suggest is to not just review the sender, but to also hover over it, because sometimes the sender information can look dummied. Um,
sure.
so that was like one of the first indicators about this. Secondly, it's an old logo from Gmail. So really
Oh,
being cognizant of, you know,
mhm,
is that indicative of what their current brand looks like?
mhm,
As
yeah,
well as there's a lot of urgency, which we talked about, where
mhm,
it's asking you to do something. So one of the things that um, is right away my eye is drawn to within the email is the box scan for viruses. It's going to
sure.
try to get you to do something. But even
Yeah.
further in that, like their customer spelled it incorrectly.
Mm,
The tagline, I'm a representative of support center. Um, these are not the way Gmail would communicate
right.
typically. So I know that there's oftentimes in these scenarios, you're contacted as like, you must do something now. But whenever you see that, that should be your first red flag of, oh, I need to pause. I need to actually validate what's happening, and
Yep.
then I can either choose to ignore it or you know, really try to determine if there is a request being made that's valid.
I often will like type like if it's something that, could be real, I might type the actual like Gmail and the subject line scam question mark and then I check like, oh, are other people talking about this or reporting this? If it's at work, it's very easy. I can send it to my IT department and say, hey, is this phishing? Because I'm worried, before I click this link. But if you're at home, you have to have your other strategies, right?
Yeah, so I definitely, before you click on anything, definitely think before you click.
Yeah. And something like Scan for Viruses might be trying to get you to literally download a file that's going to
Precisely,
take over your
malware
computer,
or
malware, or key capture, where it's, everything you type is being sent off somewhere. So, all right. So then
so
phishing has happened, and unfortunately, I or my beloved family member, someone has given some information.
So once a bad actor or fraudster has taken the time to like learn the right players, the relationship dynamic, the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, they'll then usually do a targeted spoofing attempt that's more individualized. So if I know that you work for the CFO, I can then go reach out and say, hey, this is the CFO from X organization. I need you to send a payment, where it's
Yes.
really individualized. And I've learned, maybe I've taken, I know that you work at X organization, and then I pull up your LinkedIn and I can figure out organizationally what your role is and then who you report to. So one thing we're going to just kind of reiterate is information is out there. So you really, and that's uncontrollable. But what you can control is your response.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So I was thinking more about this after we chatted the other day about this, and I was at a nonprofit, and I was realizing that it was actually at the spoofing stage because we started to get emails that were like purporting to be from my treasurer or my board president telling me to pay a vendor. And, so somehow something had gotten out, and, some of that is public information. It's in our 990 tax returns about who. But it was very well crafted. And I think they might have used AI a little bit. I know we'll talk about AI later to make it sound pretty legitimate, but it was like somebody's in a meeting, but a vendor needs to be paid. They knew about an event we had coming up, a fundraiser, and this vendor needs to be paid urgently before this fundraiser. And it was, that urgency. And, I was able to call the people, pick up the phone and, just double checking, this is not from you, right? Because it doesn't, and, then I had to let all my board members know too, not to respond to this. So I think it is a little scary when they start to get into knowing things about you.
yeah, because like that level of information seeking and to know that level of detail, like it's almost like they study their victims, and it's really unfortunate because it does seem so legitimate. So it was fantastic that you were able to recognize it and also raise the alarm to other people that would probably also being contacted. So
that's right. The email was going out and was crafted differently for different people. So I know we had some examples here of actual fraudsters, that things that have happened recently where they are spoofing the Harvard Federal Credit Union. So anything you want to say about these texts that people got?
So these are real examples of customer texts that are customers reporting spoofing attempts of different organizations pretending to be Harvard FCU. One thing I will say is these are really well crafted messages because they know very closely what our verbiage says and what our process is, because they've gone ahead and studied our overall messaging and responses. And that's just one thing that we've had to kind of like address with our membership base, is to then educate our members about spoofing.
And if I got one of these I could just hang up and call the support center.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the things we really want to reiterate
Or
is that spoofing and phishing attempts happen on communications received. If you're ever not sure of is this valid or is this legitimate, contact that organization back on a known email or a
Right.
known, don't just reply back
yes.
or call the number presented. You really just want to cease communications if you're ever unsure, and contact them on a number you know
Or
is
I could
valid.
log into the Harvard FCU banking app and then do texting that way if I want to text with, there is a secure texting on there with the support center. So those are all ways that you can verify, I guess. We do want to touch a little bit on those charity and donation scams. Again, working on those emotions, oh, did you hear that food stamps, SNAP has been cut, all true things, and like bringing up emotions around feeding people and, our desire to help one another. And then,
But one thing that we definitely just want to reiterate though is you don't ever have to feel pressure to donate in person. You can say, thank you for the wonderful information. I feel, so much wiser knowing about what's going on with this. Let me go home and actually or I'll go home and make the payment. I don't have
Yep.
cash. Like, no is a full and complete sentence, especially when it comes to providing
Yes.
payment or
Yeah, and that's that
information.
politely paranoid
Yes, be
thing.
politely
Like,
paranoid.
oh, I'm gonna Google directly and donate directly on the food for free site. I'm not gonna give to someone in the street that I just met.
Precisely.
I personally, just because I don't want to get pressured into doing something, I don't give to anyone at the door. I don't give to anyone on the street. Unless it's like I'm giving $1 to someone just because I'm like, go get warm, whatever. Like, but I'm not giving anything that I can't afford to be scammed out of, basically. Like,
Precisely. That's such a smart strategy, especially to when it comes to charity donations, things like that. You can also use the excuse, hey, I plan on making a bigger donation. I need to make it from home for tax purposes. So I just need to track it with my accountant.
Yeah.
So
Yep. And then another classic for the holidays is the
delivery scams.
delivery.
So the things you just want to be mindful of is we all are waiting for packages. So when it comes to the response, just be wary of anything that asks you to pay a fee or an import or things
Tariff.
like that.
Nowadays, I think I've been seeing
Precisely.
some of the scams around. There's a tariff and you need to pay it extra. Yeah.
So again, just really vet that is actually the situation. And also one of the things that we really recommend is following up with the direct tracking number directly to see where things are in transit. So if you know that you're waiting on something really important, you have peace of mind following the delivery itself versus just relying on unsolicited communication. So
and I know I can sometimes be a little disorganized, especially around the holidays. And one of the things that I've learned to do is just whenever I'm waiting on a package, I use an email system that has stars. I star it while I'm waiting for the package, and then when it arrives, I unstar it. So like I always know I can always go into my starred emails and be like, okay, these are the ones that I'm waiting on, and not be and know that I can go back to those sellers and directly, like you said, track this.
I wish I had your level of organization.
Well, that's something that it's pretty easy to do, like flag or star or whatever. And for me, that has worked well to be able to know what is on its way, right? So let's talk about some of those red flags, signs of a scam.
Definitely. There are so many different scam scenarios and things that we have to be mindful of. But one thing working in this field I've seen time and time again is there's a lot of similarities when it comes to signs of a scam. So the scenario might change, but the indicators do not. So one of the first things that I see is that sense of urgency or playing upon human emotion. So whether it's a grandparent scam, a romance scam, an employer scam, they're all kind of like leaning into that heightened sense of emotion that it creates, as well as a sense of urgency, that pressure to act on something. So we saw that in some of the phishing emails, or hey, this is, your future employer, we need you to send that payment so we can send you the equipment, things like that, where it's really high pressure scenarios. Time and time again, it doesn't matter what the specific scam is. It's playing upon emotions, it's creating a sense of urgency, whether it's a last minute deal or something that's too good to be true. We see a lot of the same things over and over again.
Yeah, so being able to recognize like, hey, as much as I would love this to be true, this is really kind of feeling like, why is it feeling so high pressure, and recognizing that and taking that step back.
Definitely. Yeah. And we're just gonna, I apologize if I say this too many times. It's okay to be politely paranoid, and we actually encourage it when it comes to interactions. Another thing that for me is the biggest red flag is if you were ever asked to make specifically a payment that is what we consider an unrecoverable or hard to recover method. So if you have to pay in cash, if you have to pay via gift card, what did we learn? Gift cards are for presents, not payments. So again, things that where it would be harder to recover the funds, that's where we really want to take a pause and reassess the situation and what's going on.
Yeah. My first day here, I got a text purporting to be from our CEO saying he was in a meeting and could I run out and get some gift cards for him?
That's insanity. The fact it was your first day. Welcome to banking.
Well, now that I think back on it, it may have been, IT does test people here. So it may have been a test, but I was like, wow, okay.
They really
anyway. And then the too good to be true stuff we've already touched on a little bit.
But again, if you were asked to pay taxes, fees up front ahead of receiving something, or if it just something doesn't sit well, it's probably an indicator that pause and trust but verify.
Yeah. I know, like when people are searching for housing, that's like another one where it's like too good to be true. Like, if you know the average rent in Boston is like 3,000 and you suddenly see something,
a palace for
like a beautiful
1,200.
place for 1,200, like we wish, but it's not true,
Unfortunately, there are no 3-bedroom, 2 baths over on Brookline for
they took the photos from somebody else's listing and then they're reposting it. So that's like a classic one, I think, too. So before we wrap up, and we are going to get to your questions, so we want to make sure we leave time for that. We're going to give you some tips. Nothing can be 100%, but I think some of these tips will be helpful, and some of them I think we've already touched on. So we've touched on the high pressure.
Yeah, you definitely want to take a pause and recognize that it's okay to recuse yourself from the situation. Like, hey, I think in today's environment, again, being politely paranoid is just how we have to navigate, record numbers of data breaches and what's out there.
Yeah.
So,
and you're already doing this one. You're already educating yourself on common scams. And then, so trusted software to protect your devices.
Definitely recommended. Again, something that can help monitor for breaches or something anomalous, things like that. But you also want to do your research ahead of time. You don't want to ever respond to Norton antivirus pop-up that comes from out of the blue. So you definitely want to be more proactive with that step versus, it's a little more suspicious if all of a sudden you have hey, we've scanned your viruses, and if you download this link, so definitely be cautious of it. So you want to take this as a proactive measure.
Yeah, and then making sure just all your devices are password protected. I know that's really easy to skip or to use the same password on things, but it's not really a great idea, right?
And definitely, and when it specifically comes to passwords, length over complexity. So I don't even like the word password, passphrase, because whether it's a favorite lyric to a song or something that reminds you about how to log in for it, the longer the better as far as passwords. So
okay. And what about two-factor or other multi-factor authorization, MFA?
Absolutely recommend it, particularly on bank accounts. Like we're getting into the digital age where DoorDash requires MFA. Do you know what I mean? So protect as many accounts as you can, because that's how the information gets out there.
Right.
Definitely on email, definitely on any financial accounts or anything that's really sensitive. Should just verbatim have MFA.
Yes. Yeah. Because if someone gets into your email, then they can impersonate you in all kinds of ways, right?
Precisely,
So,
or somebody steals your phone, you want to
Mhm.
always have some kind of backup.
yep.
You have to kind of move through life, not just being politely paranoid, but also having dual control over
Mhm.
your devices and
Yeah. And then I do monitor my financial accounts regularly, and that's how I know to even, like I said, ask my kid about, did you actually charge this thing? What about putting a freeze on your credit?
So I would recommend if you're not using your credit, there's no reason for that information to be out there or even
Mhm.
accounts to be open. So
Yeah.
if you're in a financial situation where you don't think that you're going to have a need to buy a car or a house, or there might be months or years without you using it,
Mhm.
I personally keep all of my accounts frozen until I need them. And that's just the easiest way to kind of prevent uh, things being opened without your knowledge for it.
Okay.
But also monitoring is a fantastic approach as well. So if you know that within 3 months you want to do an auto loan, so you don't necessarily want to freeze the account and then
Mhm.
reopen it, having that monitoring in place over that period of time is super beneficial.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. And I know if you're a member of the credit union, we have the Savvy Money. It is free service that we provide to our members. You do need to enroll, but you don't need to give a credit card or anything for it. And that will help you monitor any open credit, any new accounts open. You'll get the information sent to you through Savvy Money. So we do want to get to some questions quick before that people sent in. So can you talk a little bit about artificial intelligence, AI? How is that contributing to fraud right now?
Sure. We are in the digital age. Everything from faster payments, creating faster fraud because real-time payments has made it
Uh,
super quick to create authorizations,
uh-huh.
to everything from fraud being able to be conducted at scale. So we have just mass amounts of data breaches, which makes it easier to commit mass amounts of
Mhm.
identity theft or
Mhm.
compromised accounts. We were
I remember, well, not
Yeah.
even remember that, like, there was a time when I thought my social security number was secret.
It is not. It is, again, we have to come from a
I
perspective
mean,
of
I
just
wish it were.
assuming it's out there.
Yeah.
When I was in college, our logins for the school,
Mhm.
our username were our social security. So
Oh, wow.
when that college had a data breach,
Yes.
again, things
Yeah.
people did not necessarily think of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, we did already touch on this, I think, important ways to protect yourselves from scammers. So, anything other kind of top tips that you want to mention?
if I had to pick a top three, if there's only three things that you take away from this
Mhm.
entire webinar,
Yep.
it's never make an unrecoverable payment. I'm just going to stop
Okay.
there. So
Yeah.
don't make payments in cash, gift cards, or for gifts, not payments.
Yeah.
Second thing is just being here, educating yourself on common scam scenarios and what's out there.
Yeah.
Again, another incredible benefit. And then finally, again, when it comes to kind of controlling your environment, just thinking before you act. Like you cannot necessarily prevent, um, you know, a scammer coming up to you and trying to scam it, but you can
Mhm.
prevent, or you can control your response to
Your
it.
reaction. Yeah.
So think
Yeah.
before you act, be
Mm-hmm.
politely paranoid,
Mm-hmm.
don't be afraid to say no.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, so interesting. Okay, thank you. I'll look that over later. Yeah.
precisely.
Yeah. Okay, what do I do if I think I have maybe fallen for a fraud attempt or a scam? What should I be doing?
So it's gonna depend on like each let me back up for a second. I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Your recovery plan is going to be individualized depending on was information provided, was a transaction made. So it's going to depend on the type of fraud. So the first thing I would recommend, because it's going to be so variable, is to contact your institution right away. So call Harvard FCU and we can make a personalized recovery plan for you
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be based upon, is it resecuring your accounts because login information was provided, or do we need to contact another FI because a payment was sent
NFI is a
fraudulently?
financial
Oh yeah,
institution.
sorry
Okay.
the bank jargon.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And if anybody's watching this and is not a Harvard Federal Credit Union member, so again, it's calling your bank or your credit union, and working on that personalized recovery plan. And I think that that's a great first step. just like Chris earlier, don't worry alone on the EAP.
Exactly.
Don't worry alone on your fraud for sure. So that's it for what we had. It looks like we have answered all the questions that came in. Just again, we are Harvard Federal Credit Union. We are here for you if you're looking for not-for-profit banking for the MGB community. And we're delighted that you have joined us today and really appreciate having this opportunity to talk with you about scams and frauds and how you can avoid them. So I think that that's it for our questions, and I think that means that we're going to say goodbye now. But thank you so much, Daniela. I know we're going to come back in February and cover romance scams. Sometimes, in particular, I've heard from a lot of children who are worried about their elderly parents with romance scams, and it doesn't have to be you. It could be someone you're worried about. Come and learn about those with us, and we are also happy for you to participate in any of our financial wellness workshops. So thank you for coming today, and we're going to say goodbye now.
Thank you for your time, Jen.
Thank you.